And then now we actually have the empirical reality where Christianity is waning. And what we are getting in the highest temples of learning, the temples of reason, is not reason. It's unreason.
Ayaan Hirshi Ali is a former atheist turned Christian. How did she come to believe in the Christian worldview, you might ask? Well, through rationality and reason. Check this out, because this is going to be good.
I mean, I think we don't want 7 billion robots. What would even the point be?
Yeah, well, people are made very uncomfortable with the idea that we don't have agency, that we're not in control in this way. But that was the big criticism that Christopher Hitchens made in the other direction. He said that God is a celestial dictator. God is somebody who is constantly surveilling you and watching you while you sleep and convicting you of thought crime and punishing you for even disobedience in your own mind. Presumably that's not the relationship you feel that you have with God.
I think he read more of the Quran than the New Testament.
I did wonder, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, if you could sit down with Christopher Hitchens today, or go back in time and speak to him, what would you say to him? What do you think he was missing?
I think we would tour the universities together in America, and we would look at what's happening to young people today. And we would look at the effect of saying what it is that they're seeking and they're opening themselves up to. And here I referenced Bertrand Russell when he wrote the essay, Why I Am Not a Christian, where he then really goes on to say, if Christianity were to disappear, we would have, reason would overtake, and we'd be would have so much progress and so much humanity and so much reason. And then now we actually have the empirical reality where Christianity is waning. And what we are getting in the highest temples of learning, the temples of reason, is not reason. It's unreason. And I wanted to have a conversation with Christopher Hitchens. And when I brought this up with Richard Dawkins, he did acknowledge it, and he finds it frustrating. And I understand why he's frustrated. But I think we have to go back to this idea of, as human beings, we're much, much more complex than just the material. The atheist assertion, we're insignificant, we are nothing. I forget what Richard used to say about, we are so, he said, I forget the exact quote, but it amounts to...
blind, pitiless indifference.
Yes, and we're no more... What was it? We have no more significance than some kind of organism.
Right.
And that's just not true. And anyway, I also want to point out, in this reading journey that I have taken on, that there are more and more people, the more we discover about the universe and the more we discover about the world, there are more and more scientists, especially on the hard science part, who are saying there is something rather than nothing. And I think that's sort of the conversation I would have with Christopher Hitchens. The problem of the activism, the evangelizing of atheism, I think that creates a barrier that robs one of curiosity. If you just shed that and you come, and you shake that off and you think, I'm open to change my mind, then, you could change your mind. You could see things that you wouldn't see when you say, I don't want to see it at all. In other words, the accusation they level against people of faith is also true for them. They really do believe in being atheists, in not believing in God. And so that is why the whole conversation about within the Christian West ended with, let's agree to disagree, until the world came into the West, until Islam came and other forces came in, and that is why it's reopened.
Christianity has lessened within the West. This isn't an opinion, this is a fact. Let me ask you a question. Have you seen things in the West over the last decade, maybe even longer, get worse or better? Have you seen societies shun religion and specifically Christianity in the past? And have we seen anything that has followed from that? Well, one example that comes to mind is the French Revolution. They were on a pursuit to get rid of all religiosity within France. There were many things that followed after that, but one thing in particular was what is considered the first genocide ever. You see, the governing officials at that time went into mainly rural areas in France seeking to unalive Catholics. They did this in mass, which is why this is considered to be one of the first genocides. They also sought to replace the practices going on in churches with practices of lewdness, overt sexuality, and other things. And they largely did so in many of the churches in France. It was rather not a great time in the history of France. That is probably also the understatement of the year. In the past, there was also a man with a funny mustache who was pursuing a solution, let's call it a final one. His worldview was purely atheistic in nature. There was no room for God or a creator. The exact same could be said for Mao or for Stalin. These people were seeking to rid their cultures of any type of worship of God or of religion. They were seeking to replace the state as the power that had ultimate control, and chaos very soon afterwards ensued. These people fanatically pursued a human utopia that could only be brought about by their means, by their power. This is often what happens when you see religiosity, specifically Christianity, lessen, whether that's by force or whether that's by cultural changes. Usually bad things follow. I really hope atheists like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins would have some of the blinders removed from their eyes to admit the obvious fact that more good has absolutely come from Christianity than evil. And then from there, I hope they would ultimately ask themselves if good can come from a lie. Somebody like Dawkins takes seriously his pursuit of the truth, but sometimes when it comes to religious matters, he just seems to ignore some of the obvious facts. I really wish these people would account for them, account for the fact that good has come from Christianity, and to answer whether or not good can come from a lie. I truly think if they would honestly dwell on those questions for a while, that the answers might surprise them. Ayaan Hirshi Ali's story of going from a Muslim to an atheist to a Christian is an absolutely fascinating one, and part of that journey was her recognizing the good that comes from Christianity. If you haven't heard her story, I'd really encourage you to check it out. It's amazing, and maybe in a future video we can dive into it more. Thanks for watching.